In the second chapter of the Pickup Video series, we are going to have a look at the playlist portion of FL Studio. In a nutshell, the playlist job is to play back the pattern or patterns in the order that you specify to create a complete song. In the last chapter, we had a quick look at building patterns using the various channel types. To move along in this chapter, I have already programmed an extremely simple pattern that I will use as my starting point to demonstrate the playlist. Let's have a quick listen. Pretty simple indeed. Looking over at the right side of the program's interface is the playlist. The playlist can play up to 63 possible patterns. In addition to that, you can also record audio directly into the playlist. However, let's start off by working with patterns in the playlist. The first pattern in the playlist I have renamed to Kickoff Pattern, and is a pattern that you just heard. You can change this to any name you wish by simply right-clicking on the pattern name and choosing Rename and typing in a new one. Now that we have a pattern, we want to tell the playlist to play it. I'm actually going to start by setting the playlist to play pattern 1 from bar 1 to the end of bar 4. To do this, I'll need to make sure that I'm using either the pencil tool or the paintbrush tool. The pencil tool will allow you to enter a pattern one bar at a time. However, as in this demonstration, I'm going to be placing the pattern across several bars. I'm going to use the paintbrush tool to enter the patterns. If you have made a mistake and wish to remove a pattern from the bar, you can simply right-click on the pattern to delete it. Another useful tip is that when entering your patterns, you may wish to use the snap grid to ensure that your patterns are entered at the correct time. For example, I have set my snap grid to a value of 1 bar, so I know that when I click on the bar to enter a pattern, it will be placed so that it starts exactly at the beginning of the bar. Whatever grid settings you will use will mostly depend on the type of music you are working with. So now that I have pattern 1 entered to play from bar 1 to the end of bar 4, let's switch the play mode from pattern to song. Doing so will tell FL Studio that you will want to play back from the playlist as opposed to the currently selected pattern. Once that is done, begin playback. You can now see the playback cursor scrolling along the top of the playlist window. Pretty simple. So now let's take a look at how to extend that by telling the playlist to play back more than one pattern. To do this, let's copy the first pattern to pattern 2. This will give us a starting point for pattern 2. Do this by right-clicking on pattern 1 and choosing Clone Pattern. Pattern 2 will now have the same name as pattern 1. So let's right-click on that and change it so that it reflects a new pattern name. Here I will call it Synth Line, as I'm going to remove all but the synth channel from the pattern. Now with this pattern, I'm going to turn off all the channels other than the synth line channel. Before you do this, make sure that the pattern you wish to edit is selected from the playlist window. The currently selected pattern will have its name displayed in orange text. Next, I'll simply right-click to remove any notes from the drum and percussion channels. You can hear only the 2 synth lines that are left. So what I want to do now is to have a 2-bar intro using only the synth from pattern 2. I will draw in the pattern on the playlist, just the first 2 bars. Next, I'll enter pattern 1 to play between bars 3 to 6. Now when I play the playlist, you'll hear the single synth line open for 2 bars. Then pattern 1 takes over from bar 3 with the drums and percussion. Fairly straightforward. Now let's add a little more. I'm going to go down to pattern 3 and rename it and call this Lead, as it will be a new pattern that I'll be using for lead synth only. Once clicking on the pattern 3, you can see that it is empty, so I'll add a new Citrus channel. The plugin interface will appear. I'm going to grab a preset from the browser that will work nicely as a lead. Fast forwarding a bit, I have programmed my lead and now telling the playlist to play patterns 3 between bars 5 and 7, and playing back the song, you can now hear the lead bit come in on bar 5. You see how easy it is to start building your song? So now let's move on to recording audio. It is possible to record audio directly on the playlist. making it easy to overdub vocals, guitars, or anything else you can think of. To record audio, we need to make sure that FL Studio has been set up with your hardware properly. Please check our recording audio video for more on how to do so. Once your hardware is set up in FL Studio, open the mixer window. Select one of the insert channels. From the In column to the right side of the mixer, choose the input of your audio interface you wish to record from. The channel is now set to record. Click the Record button, then click the Play button. After the countdown, recording will begin. After you have completed your recording, and you may wish to record more to another channel in the playlist, simply hit the disc icon under the Insert channel, type in a file name for the next bit of audio, and repeat the above process. So in this chapter, we had a look at working with the playlist window to play back patterns in the order we wish, as well as looking at how to record audio directly into the playlist. In the next chapter, we'll have a look at some of the channel settings and applying effects to the channels.